What's up, suckers? It's me. If you are watching this instead of listening to it and you're like, Ariana, why do you look like you fell asleep in your makeup last night? It's because I did. Because I shot this video yesterday and then I went back and I listened to it and I didn't like it. And so I said that I was going to go ahead and redo it, and I am redoing it, but I'm not redoing my makeup again, dude. Like, this took too much time. So just pretend I'm being glam, if that's the right term. Anyway, before I get into what I'm about to talk about, if this is your kind of thing, if you are all about ADHD and what to expect from ADHD and how to be productive with ADHD and how to accept yourself with ADHD, then please, for the love of God, smash that subscribe button. If you are listening to this as a podcast, smash the subscribe button. It helps other people find me, helps me find cool people, and that is literally what this whole thing is about, I'm assuming. Anyway. So, if you've read the title of this video, it is a little bit different in that it is a personal update. I generally don't do those, but I felt like this was enough of one that I just really wanted to kind of make a video on it. And I also want to be clear on something. I feel like there's so much shame still tied to ADHD medication that when people see things about not taking it anymore, they assume that what this is going to be is me talking shit about medication or putting people down for taking medication. And I want to make it clear that's not what this is. I will never shit on anyone for following what works best for them. And if that happens to be Western medicine or pharmaceuticals, cool. And that is something that I think we all need to get behind. It doesn't really fucking matter what people need to take care of themselves as long as it is well backed by science and history. I really am not here to judge. So, for me personally, as the title of the video has said, I am no longer taking my ADHD medication. And there was a lot that played into it. The biggest of which being about threefold. The first reason being that here in Costa Rica, really anywhere, my medication is fucking expensive. I was on Concerta, and I especially found that the generic just wasn't working well for me, and so I had to take the name brand, and that's even more expensive. And I really just did not like the fact that I was consistently having to spend a ridiculous amount of money every month for just one medication. The second reason was that, and I want to make it clear that I don't think this is going to happen to literally everybody who takes it. I am just one of those people who is lucky that way, I guess. But I wound up with anhedonia. Hey! And if you don't know what that is, anhedonia is the inability to feel joy and happiness. And if you're like, Ariana, dude, that's depression. What you're describing is depression. No, the difference between, at least for me, depression and anhedonia, because I have had both, is that with depression, I lose all interest in doing much of anything. It is hard for me to get out of bed. I kind of just want to lay there, sleep all day. I have no interest in anything. And yeah, my feelings are just blunted and all around. But, I do kind of feel this emptiness, right? This sadness. With anhedonia, I was able to feel sad. I was able to feel angry. I was able to feel all of the negative stuff, but none of the joy. And I wanted to feel joy. I wanted to feel something. And I was also aware that I wasn't feeling joy, which is also a difference. I feel like with depression, you tend to kind of feel like you are just wrapped in this blanket of bad feeling to the point where you can't really tell what you're dealing with. Whereas with anhedonia, it was like I would be doing something that I knew would generally fill me with joy or happiness, and I just didn't feel it. And I knew that this was a problem. So I did a little bit of research, and because ADHD medication tends to help with dopamine production, for some people it can cause what's called a downregulation of dopamine receptors. Is it an intense downregulation? Does that mean it's going to happen for everybody? No. But for me, it really started to bug me that my receptors were not as sensitive to dopamine and that they weren't making quite as much. It was obvious, and I didn't like it. So at the time, I was on that medication and an antidepressant called vortioxetine, which is also known as Trintellix or Brintellix. And I doubted that it was the Trintellix or Brintellix, and it also is a pain in the ass to come off of any sort of antidepressant. So I decided to see if my ADHD medication would fix things first, if coming off of that would help, because it is easier to just not take that. And the third reason why I was kind of looking into coming off of it was that somewhat separate but somewhat the same. I was having hormonal issues. I don't even know that that's really the right term. So I have what's called premenstrual dysmorphic disorder. Something crazy like 46% of those with ADHD are going to find that we have that. And what it is it's like PMS on steroids. Someone once likened it to likening a cold to norovirus, and that's pretty accurate. Like it's basically in the same vein. You do feel crampy and irritable, and you do have all of that going on, but it's so much worse. Sometimes it comes with ideation of, and I'll watch how I put this because YouTube hates this word, unaliving yourself. You also tend to just find that you are a totally different person for way longer than you should be, about 2 weeks out of the month. It's a miserable way to be. And yeah, one of the things that a lot of people with ADHD also tend to deal with is this worsening of symptoms. And I was definitely dealing with that. I found that not even my medication would work on certain days, and it was very hard to figure out. And the more research I did, the more, I hate to use the term research because I feel like nowadays everybody thinks that Googling something counts as research. But I was reading up on it, and theories are floating around out there, but the one that seemed to track best for me anyway was the idea that people with PMDD don't have a hormonal imbalance. What we have is a major sensitivity to changes in hormones. So essentially, when we get tested, our hormones are not going to show any difference. It's why we could go in and get our thyroids checked and our hormones checked and nothing comes back looking different or bad or out of whack. It's because we aren't out of whack. It's that we are very, very sensitive to changes in hormones. And so that's going to mean that it doesn't have to be a rise in progesterone or a rise in estrogen or a drop in either one. It's just anytime that your hormones are changing, you are going to feel like shit. You're going to feel bad. And that's, the kind of thing that could definitely override medications even that you're taking for helping with things like dopamine. And I'm going to be honest, I 100%, this is the most ADHD thing I think I've ever said. I don't remember how I got into this, but I started really getting into medicinal herbalism. And I know that there are some of you out there that are like, hey, I like medicinal herbalism too. I like to smoke a little on Fridays. Yes, cannabis is part of medicinal herbalism, but I'm not actually talking about that. I am talking about more than that. I'm talking about making medicine, from plants and using tinctures and teas and things like that. Like it really just, I identified with it. So all of those things together, I just kind of started leaning towards seeing, testing, whether or not I could figure out a way to work for me that would get rid of the need to continue to keep taking these pills that were draining my pockets every month. And I even saw a registered herbalist. I have been taking herbal medicine classes and I'm loving it and I'm learning so much, but I just didn't know enough to be able to help myself yet. So I met with another herbalist and they made suggestions for me, but unfortunately, because they were based in the United States, the herbs that they were suggesting to me just weren't easy to come by here. So while I was waiting to get my hands on those herbs, I started kind of looking around here. And I happened to be in a market in the near large town. The person who I spoke with was actually not even an herbalist, as far as I know. They were just kind of working in like this little pharmacy stall. You know, it looked like the kind of thing that you would find at like a GNC or basically any health food store. And I asked after the herbs that I was actually looking for, and I told them what I needed them for. And the person said, well, we don't have those, but we do have this. And they held up a bottle of like capsules that you would probably be able to buy it at any store as far as I know. And they were like, and of course, because I know that a lot of people out there are going to be like, what herbs? I'm going to tell you right now, before I tell you, that just because it worked for me does not mean it's going to work for you. There's a lot of stuff you have to take into account, starting with your constitution, starting with other medications that you're on, starting with a number of other things. So if you hear this and you decide to try these herbs, do not blame me if it doesn't work, okay? Because that's not what this is about. But I know how we work, and I know that some of you are going to be curious and some of you might want to try it. Just don't blame me, okay? But what they gave me was a mixture of what's called maca and another called ginseng, specifically Panax ginseng, also known as red ginseng or Korean ginseng. Ginseng is very popular. A lot of people know that one because it's good for energy. And then maca, I don't know if you know what that is. I just found out about it when I was trying to look into things to curb my mood swings, which were actually probably one of my most intense symptoms. But maca root, usually used as a powder, is generally used for hormonal help and a couple of other things, including erectile dysfunction. So, if you're feeling a little limp, I don't know, maybe this will help. But I had heard about maca root at that point, and I had heard about ginseng, and I knew enough about the two of them to think that sounded like a worthwhile try. If you start reading into either one of them, the one that does have more studies in connection with ADHD is going to be ginseng for sure. Maca really doesn't have as much, but it does have some studies that have shown that it can help with hormonal control, especially in lab rats. Not a lab rat, but I was willing to be one in this situation. So I got the pills to hold me over. And once I got my hands on the US herbs, I tried those. They didn't work as well. So I went back to using the maca and ginseng. And I don't remember when it hit me, but I realized that when I was on that particular mixture, and it did have, some other things that ADHD brains are very deficient in, supposedly, B vitamins, zinc. But once I started taking that, I did stop taking my medicine originally just because you really don't want to take your ADHD medication with other energetics till you know how it's going to affect you, right? You don't want to wind up with heart palpitations, things like that. But eventually I realized that my brain didn't feel any different, like from when I take my medication, I mean. And that was amazing to me. I still am able to focus. I still am able to get things done on my to-do list. I'm still able to think through a quieter brain. It honestly does just about the same thing for me. And that felt amazing. It felt great because, it has this added effect of the maca actually working out for me in that I don't feel anywhere near as irritable or angry anymore. I'm doing great throughout the month. I do still have about 2 or 3 days where I'll feel kind of tired and I'll feel a little off, but most of the time I can push through if I have to. If I don't have to, I don't. But if I have to, I can. And it's been pretty incredible. And so I have not taken my ADHD medication now in about a month, and I haven't missed it. I tried at the beginning to take it and what I had just to see what it would be like, and it was unpleasant. I really didn't like the way that I felt, so I dropped it, and I haven't needed it. So I'm telling you this for 2 reasons. The first being that I have never been the kind to hide anything from you guys, because I don't want you to feel like I am not being honest with you, or that I am giving you advice that does not come from a place of having been there, done that. right? And the second is that I know that there are people out there who can't handle the medications, who probably wonder whether or not it's possible to manage their symptoms without using pharmaceuticals. And while I am not going to say that it is possible for everyone, I do honestly believe that I'm living proof that it's possible. And I don't think it's fair that there seems to be this super derisive, and I don't know if I said that word right, I don't really care, this super derisive attitude towards plant medicine. You should see the looks that some people have been giving me since I told them I'm into medicinal herbalism, and I don't know if that's because they assume that I'm against medicine now, or if they think that I'm gonna be like looking my nose down, or if everybody thinks that medicinal herbalism means that I'm gonna tell you to go out there and lick a tree to like cure your headaches. I don't really know what the attitude is for, but I do find that in the ADHD community especially, there tends to be this attitude of derision, of like, oh, yeah, you're gonna tell me that I need to try plants? Okay, well, fuck you, man. Like, what's plants supposed to do? By itself, nothing. Just like medication by itself does nothing. The only difference here between what I'm doing and what other people are doing is that medication is going to give you the exact same concentration, exact same measured strength every single time. Plants may not. Okay? That doesn't necessarily mean that what I'm doing is stupid or false or fake, or that it is downplaying what other people have. So if you're watching this and you're like, man, I really wish that I could get medicated, but I can't because I can't handle the medication, maybe it's worth it. Maybe it's worth it to try to look into what those other options are. I do want to make sure that I reiterate, though, please make sure that whatever option you go for has some legit information backing it up. One of the things that I absolutely love about plant medicine is that a very high number, if not all, of the plants that are generally suggested that you start working with or that you learn from, these things, if not backed by multiple recent peer-reviewed scientific experiments to prove that they work, they're at least backed by years and years and years of folk medicinal use. And quite a few of the medications that we take these days are actually based in some way or another off of plants that we used to use. And I'm going to stop there before I go into a huge rant about this, because I could talk about this forever. But my point being, I'm not going to shame you for trying things because I feel that it is literally the other side of the coin from people shaming us for taking medication. It's really none of our business what works for others, as long as it's working for them and it's not hurting anyone. So anyway, just wanted to mention this. Yeah, I'm not medicated anymore. I'm still going to be able to give you plenty of good advice, plenty of good tools that have been working for me or for other people. I'm still able to work with clients, still able to keep myself going. So there is definitely not much that's going to change, except, I don't know, you might hear me rambling on about plants a bit more. So yeah, if you have any other questions for me, go ahead and drop them in the comments. Thanks very much for watching this video. Drink water, take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next video.